So we've got another little piece from Xledger, and we're joined by Laura and Ben to dive into ESG reporting and how Xledger does this, which is not something we see in a lot of systems nowadays. So I guess my first question, probably to you, Laura, is why has Xledger focused on ESG?
So Xledger has focused on ESG. Our history is we were founded in Norway, and we've got a good presence in the rest of the Nordics as well. They have a very strong stance with ESG, climate accounting, and they're way ahead of the game that we are in the UK and the rest of Europe as well. And it's just something that even as a business we do focus on. For example, our office, we have, I don't know how many plants, but it feels like a million of them, to make sure that our office is as neutral as possible. And we just can see that trend of that becoming more and more important in the industry.
Definitely, it's something that we're hearing more and more about. And the accounting conferences we go to, there's always chat on an ESG. So you're, I guess, slightly ahead of the game, trailblazing to some extent with what you've done. So what is it that Xledger does from an ESG perspective?
Yeah, so our main aim was to firstly comply with the ESRS, so effectively reporting standards in the European Union, and to allow companies that are getting pressured by that governance to report. And then the next step is to make it as easy as possible for people to get that data in the system. And there's a lot of data we can capture um, across the system, and we can use that to produce these reports for our customers.
Cool. And ESG is pretty broad. Is there a specific area you focus on, or you equally can cover all areas of ESG?
Yeah, so it's largely the data-driven areas. So when you've got ESG, you've got your environmental, social, and governance. Environmental is the main area because that is very data-driven. You've also got social, which is quite data-driven in terms of gender pay gaps and gender diversity. But those areas where it's based on the data we have in the system, whether it's carbon reporting, whether it's waste management and that kind of stuff, that's where we can provide a lot of help.
Cool. And obviously, let's talk a little bit about gender reporting first, because my understanding is that in the product you haven't specifically got payroll, is that right? But you can ingest the information to enable the ESG reporting. Am I correct with that?
Exactly that. We haven't got payroll in the UK, but we have got payroll in other regions. So we're set up as a bit of a HR management where we can manage employees and can capture that data against employees. So whilst we can't directly report and submit payroll, we can do the remainder of the social reporting off the back of it.
Cool. And then say carbon accounting. It's not something that I've done a lot of, and I know that regulation or guidance on this can vary in jurisdictions. So how are you tracking it? Let's not get too technical, but I assume when people are inputting information, they have to put in the carbon elements as well? Or how does it work?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways to track it, whether it's from the resource, so you entering your carbon emissions, entering how much energy you're using, or whether it's arguably a bit more simple, almost working back for how much you pay for electricity or something. So you can work out kind of reversing the factor and working back how much that carbon or kilowatt power would be. And then we can do the calculations off the back of that to find your CO2 equivalent and get into the reporting.
Cool. So it's flexible in that you can go in both directions. You
Exactly.
don't have to worry about, as you're entering a transaction, if you don't put it in there, then you're kind of stuck. You can kind of work in review, maybe even the end of a period where you're going, okay, well, let's work out from that spot.
Exactly that. If you want to do as simple as just enter your meter readings, that's the easiest level you could do if you wanted to.
Cool. So that's obviously the direct side. Do you cover the indirect side as well? So where you've got suppliers that you're not going to get like a carbon accounting bit of information on that. How would you handle that at the moment?
So there's a lot of factors and emission factors, we call them resource factors, that you can use on external supplier information or from suppliers. So these are largely, you can work off cost based. So again, giving you estimates of industries and how those can be calculated all the way to the reporting side. But what you touched on there is one of the hardest parts of climate accounting is getting the information from your suppliers or getting the information from the upstream, downstream of your supply chain and how that impacts yourself. So as much as we can only provide help on the data you get, there's an element of, if you're going to what we call the scope 2 and 3, that's the hardest part.
Definitely. It's like electric cars, right? They only get traction if there's enough charging points, and they don't build charging points until you've got enough electric cars. So what comes first? And until you've got the tools that you've built that encourage clients to record it and therefore be able to work out what their impact is from their sales perspective, it's not going to proliferate down. But we're seeing this more and more, the requirements, we're expecting this to grow. Like Laura, from especially UK perspective, when do you think we're really going to start to feel the pinch for needing to report on this?
We're starting to see it already. We've got a lot of clients in the housing sector, and it's already, I came from the housing sector, nearly 5 years ago, and it was a topic then. But we're seeing more and more in RFPs, in just general kind of conversations. About our kind of position, but also what we have in the system. And, we end up showing what we've got in the system, and we know it's going to go a lot further than it is today. And it's kind of blowing their minds slightly, because they weren't expecting anything, maybe one or two, little bits, but actually even the amount we've got today is kind of quite considerable. But as I say, it's becoming a hot topic, say in the industries, but also with accountants that we are speaking to. It's something that their clients are starting to ask them to start seeing. A lot of them are kind of not panicking, but kind of worried that they're going to have to do this manually. We've spoken to a lot of people that are spending hours and hours trying to create these reports, where Xledger can kind of remove all of that, because a lot of it is done kind of as you go. As Ben said, the CO2 off mileage, that's done as people enter expense claims. There's no additional work there. All of our dashboards are pre-configured. That's real time, meaning that you've kind of ticked that one off the list already.
Yeah, I've done this myself, where for a business, I've basically gone, okay, they want to know what the carbon footprint is. I now have to do this all in Excel, and it takes blooming weeks to sort it out. So yeah, if you've got the tools there that streamline it, that's going to massively help. And I found with clients, they're like, yeah, we don't have to worry about climate accounting, until they come to a tender. And then that potential customer's like, we really care about your climate impact. Like, oh, I need that information now. How do I get it? So being able to be proactive, making sure that you are working with your clients to enable the reporting on this is going to be a big positive. And we've talked about it in the prior sessions about the fact that a big differentiator for you is outsourcing. So do you see that outsourcing and climate accounting or ESG reporting really combine into a superpower, I guess, for Xledger?
Yeah, definitely. And I think with what we're seeing in outsourcing is more of that hybrid approach. So in the previous sessions, speaking about them still having some finance staff within the business, it's that added value. Using Xledger with the automation that you can get out of it, that time saving. We're finding a lot of our outsourced partners are actually adding more value by using things like our climate accounting, the ESG elements of it, just to add, that differentiator, not just for Xledger, but for the firm as well. So that accountant has got other things they can offer that end client.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, that all makes sense. So, Ben, I'm going to come to you and be very nerdy here, because I like doing that. So what is what do you think is the best feature of the ESG reporting, or the carbon accounting in Xledger? What's your favorite one?
I think there's a couple, but I think initially the automation behind it, once you've helped the system calculate in terms of giving it some emission factors and saying what your cost is for various things, that data will analyze in the background. The calculations will happen for you. You're not exporting, you're not doing anything to it. You can at real time go and see that data and get your ESG information, your climate accounting information straight out, possibly in more detail than you would have done before, because a lot of it is automated for you. So again, it's ease of access of data once you have the configuration.
Yeah, and the configurable dashboards means that you can put this information in the hands of the right people. And I think the key focus again, like, is real time. If you're doing this, that you can make decisions then that would impact it. There's so many people that look at a contract, looking at, say, it could be an electrical contract, and you're thinking, okay, well, we're going to make this decision. We're going to go with this partner without really considering the impact of what they want to do from an ESG perspective. If they can look at a report straight away, that could then help drive their decision-making process, to have the flexibility to consider cost and maybe be a little bit broader in their ESG expectations, or do they have to really go, okay, we're going 100% green on this?
Yeah, exactly that.
All right, look, brilliant. Thanks both for coming on. Look, the fact that you already have this in the system, possibly because you come from the Nordics and there's more pressure compared to the UK market, but the fact you've already got this is a big win for those that are trying to do that outsourcing for clients that want and will be doing reporting on it. So, yeah, really insightful.
Thank you.
Thank you.